you don't want to be a helicopter parent because that does create anxiety for the kid because they do need to have some kind of autonomy. But also you don't want to be like the boomer parents either, who were kind of latchkey parents. I don't really have a lot of memories with mine. Like they were either working or on vacation. I kind of self-parented and parented my siblings. And if you see this pandemic or this epidemic happening with young men, like 18 to 40s, and they're killing themselves, there was this compilation I posted yesterday. It gets me every time. It's all of, it's so emotional. It's all these dads with their kids, and they look so happy. And it was like the very last video that that the wife had taken, and you would never know. So with men, it looks totally different. So like, how do you check in without being a helicopter, and how do you make sure like the boys and the men around you are okay?
Yeah, it's really hard. We have perpetuated this really negative stereotype in our culture called boys don't cry. I spoke about this on Meat Mafia. And the reason I bring it up is because it's not talked about enough. Our men are going through something right now, and we are not acknowledging it because of radical feminism and men don't matter and we can live this whole world without men. Well, joke's on you, you can't, so stop pretending. Also, who you gonna call to go fix the roof? Because it ain't gonna be you, girl.
Hannah Brown.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's really rough. We've lost 4 times more people post-war than we did in the war. The majority of my friends, they're widows, not from war, from suicide. And so these children are growing up without parents. And whether it's the alcohol that's brought in, it's a coping mechanism in the military, right? They won't let us use cannabis. They won't let us use plant healing modalities, but they'll give us, alcohol and say, drink yourself to death. Like, they don't care. Pre-deployment, the week before we left, our guys had to be rushed out the back of the door because they were all doing coke that weekend and they would have popped positive. And so then we would have not had anyone to deploy with. So, we created this culture of boys don't cry, don't talk about your emotions, and don't give you the tools to deal with it. Part of the thing that happens with young boys, and I'm not a psychologist or psychologist or psychiatrist, but I will tell you, the majority of my friends are men, and the men that I see, it's the everyday stuff, and they have no one to talk to about it. That's what it is. And I don't know that there's any way to tell, because like you said, they look like nothing's going on. I believe it's now on us to open a door and start a conversation. And this is genuinely not a plug. This is just what I do because I don't know another way of doing it. That's what my buddy packs are for, those bracelets, those packs of 2. It's you call somebody up and you say, hey, let's just go for a walk or even for a beer. I prefer a walk, but if you want to go for a beer, you do, you boo. And sit down and you just put the bracelet on the table and they go, what's that? And the conversation can start from there. It goes, how you doing, man? You don't have to be weird about it. Don't make it uncomfortable and be like, how are you feeling today? It's like, how are you doing, man? And most of the time, if you open the door, they'll walk through it, but they don't often get the door open for them with anybody they feel they can be 100% themselves with. And that's why I work in the psychedelic space. And the majority of people I work with are men. They're able to open up to me, whether it's the container I hold or the fact that I'm a woman, and they feel like I'm going to be more empathetic and less judgmental. But we have done a beautiful job over the past several decades of telling boys their emotions are not valid, crying is a weakness, and that if they do any of those things, they're not seen as a man. And there was even, I brought her up before, and I'm not picking on her, but she made a statement on this podcast. I don't even know what the show is called. It's essentially a guy that sits there, and then there's a whole bunch of girls, and he just like yells at them. And
the whatever podcast.
That's it. Thank you. Yeah. That's the only way I can describe it.
We're big fans of that show.
Okay.
On Canceled Weekly.
Yeah. I think I've heard you talk about it before. But one of the Turning Points contributors, she went on there and she's like, they're like, what do you think of when men cry? She's like, I think they're weak and I think it makes them look pathetic. And that shit right there, that is the problem. Women that think that when men cry, they're weak. No. If a man is crying in front of you, he
feels safe with you.
And courage. Because I'll bet you they grew up being told that if they cried, they were weak. So it's this new generation of saying men don't need to exist and men that cry are weak. and we're telling men that they have no place here. Of course, people are going to be dying by suicide at unprecedented rates. They don't feel valued. They don't feel like they have a purpose. And what do we know about when you take purpose away? Mm-hmm. Everything falls. When somebody wakes up in the morning, they don't feel like they have a purpose. They don't want to be here. And that's the harsh reality. We need to stop telling men that crying is unacceptable, that their feelings are unacceptable, and completely flip it on its head and start educating these young girls who are delusional.
Well, that goes down to a woman just not feeling safe in her own body.
For sure.
Right.
It's projection.
So it's you're so terrified of the world around you that anything that's perceived as a weakness on the male's end is now a threat to your personal safety. So you're going after these very caricaturized versions of what a masculine is. And it's the immature masculine that you're seeking out, not the integrated mature masculine, which is all of it. And I was talking to, what was that guy's name? I feel so bad. Dave Hurt. Is that his name?
I think so.
I'm so sorry if that's not your name.
I think his first name's Dave.
Yeah, let me double check.
The last name I could be wrong on. We talked about my memory last night, my hamster.
So. Well, I'm dealing with a time change and daylight savings. Yeah, Dave Hurt. So he's like this big muscular man, and he's a girl dad, which it's my favorite because that always tends to be how it works out. It's always the super alpha dudes that end up being girl dads. I think there's a lesson to be there, but I'm like, no one's going to look at you and challenge that you are not masculine at all. But I guarantee being a girl dad, when those little girls run in, like all those muscles turn into mush and you are just oozing love and empathy and all these things, like you become softer on them. And that doesn't mean you're feminine. That is the mature masculine. It's feeling safe and all of that. And then for a woman to say that, if he's crying, that's somehow not, that doesn't make any sense. It just means that you feel so unsafe and you're looking for someone to compensate that. Right. When the reality that can supplement it, of course, having a strong partner, someone who's giving you certainty and providing leadership within your family, of course that's necessary. But if you don't feel whole by yourself, if you don't feel safe by yourself, no one else is going to give you that. You have to figure that out by yourself.